It happened on a Saturday night, while you were offline, while markets were closed. Donald Trump pressed post, and in that moment, 8 European countries were quietly put on a countdown: Denmark, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands, Finland. The charge: less than 50 symbolic soldiers sent to Greenland. The punishment: a 10% tariff starting February 1st, escalating to 25% by June 1st. This wasn't diplomacy, this was leverage, because Greenland isn't ice, it's rare earth corridors, it's Arctic shipping lanes, it's future control over trillions in untapped resources. And here's the part no one said out loud. While politicians argued on Twitter, a $100 billion chessboard shifted ownership behind closed doors, off-market, off-record. The European Council rushed into an emergency meeting in Brussels, not to stop the threat, but to measure how much pain they could absorb. Then came the justification: peace through strength, from Scott Bessent, the man Wall Street calls the adult in the room. Translation: comply now or pay later. Because this wasn't about Greenland, it was about proving something, that economic coercion still works, and nobody is talking about what it actually means. Good. You need to see the pattern, because this isn't politics. It's not nationalism. It's not even about Donald Trump. This is an operating system. It runs quietly, it upgrades itself, and it has been deployed over and over again. Here's how it works. Stage 1, isolation. Cut the oxygen, not with bombs, with balance sheets, tariffs, sanctions, blocked financing. When Trump announces a 25% tariff, he's not punishing governments. He's pressuring pension funds, export chains, currency stability. Money stops moving, fear starts spreading. Stage 2, demonization. The moral narrative is deployed. Security risk, Russian threat, failure to defend. Suddenly Denmark isn't an ally, it's negligent. Suddenly Greenland isn't sovereign, it's vulnerable. The target is reframed as irresponsible, unfit to control what they sit on. Public opinion is softened, resistance becomes selfish. Stage 3, intervention. This is where people expect troops. That's outdated. Now it's emergency meetings, back-channel phone calls, pressure disguised as partnership, NATO briefings, Treasury warnings, peace through strength. The clock speeds up. Decisions are forced before markets reopen. No vote, no debate, just urgency. Stage 4, extraction. This part never makes the headlines because it doesn't look like conquest. It looks like contracts, 99-year leases, joint ventures, security cooperation agreements. Resource access quietly changes hands, not through flags, through footnotes. And once this stage is complete, the noise stops. Sanctions ease, tariffs disappear, tensions cool. The media calls it de-escalation, but the system has already fed. You've seen the blueprint. Now follow the blood trail. Because this system didn't start with Greenland. It was perfected years ago. First stop, Iraq. Before the bombs, before the headlines, before shock and awe. There was a spreadsheet problem. In 2000, Saddam Hussein made a decision that barely made the news. He announced Iraq would sell its oil in euros, not US dollars. At the time, Iraq was sitting on 112 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, priced in the wrong currency. That was stage 1. Isolation followed fast. Sanctions tightened. Accounts frozen. Oil for food became oil for control. Stage 2 arrived on schedule. Weapons of mass destruction, links to terrorism, an imminent threat narrative on loop. Facts didn't matter. Inspectors didn't matter. What mattered was repetition. By March 2003, the world was primed. Stage 3, coalition forces crossed the border. Baghdad fell in 21 days. Saddam was pulled from a hole in the ground. The cameras stayed on the statue. They didn't follow the paperwork because stage 4 came quietly. Within months, Halliburton, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP were inside Iraq. No bid contracts, long-term extraction rights, oil production shifted back to dollar-denominated sales, currency threat neutralized, resource flow secured. Second stop, Libya. This one is cleaner, faster, more revealing. Muammar Gaddafi didn't want euros, he wanted something worse. Gold. Libya held over 143 tons of gold reserves, and Gaddafi had a plan, a Pan-African currency, backed by gold. The gold dinar, oil sold without dollars, Africa trading outside Western banks. That was an existential threat. Stage 1 began in 2011. Libyan assets frozen, over $30 billion locked out of reach. Stage 2 followed instantly. Dictator, humanitarian crisis, responsibility to protect. The narrative moved faster than verification. Stage 3 came from the air. NATO strikes, no invasion, just enough chaos. Gaddafi was captured, beaten, executed in the street. The cameras cut away. What happened next didn't, because the gold vanished. 143 tons, gone, no audit, no recovery, and Libya fragmented, militias everywhere, oil flowing again under new terms. Western energy companies re-entered, production resumed, currency ambitions died with Gaddafi. Now rewind and look at today. No tanks, no missiles, no invasions, just tariffs, just security concerns, just pressure applied before breakfast. Greenland doesn't need regime change. It just needs reclassification. From sovereign territory to shared responsibility. From yours to strategic. This is why the clock matters. Because the system has learned it no longer needs wars. It only needs deadlines. 72 hours. Emergency meetings. Market reactions. And while you're watching leaders argue about principles, someone else is already drafting the lease. Now apply the system to right now, because the headlines are lying by omission. Look at the timing. Saturday night post, markets closed, liquidity thin. By Monday morning, the European Council scrambles an emergency meeting in Brussels, not public, not televised, closed-door coordination. That's stage 1 already in motion. Isolation doesn't need sanctions anymore. It uses tariff cliffs. 10% on February 1st, 25% by June 1st. That's not a trade policy. That's a countdown. Every CFO in Germany and France understands what that means. Margins collapse, supply chains rewrote, pressure flows upward. Now watch stage 2, the narrative. Russian threat from Greenland, repeated by Donald Trump, echoed by Scott Bessent. Denmark is reframed as negligent, Europe is framed as weak, Greenland becomes a liability, not a homeland, a risk asset. Then comes stage 3, no troops, no invasion, just alignment pressure, NATO briefings, Treasury warnings, peace through strength. And this is where people miss the signal. Because while leaders posture publicly, something else happens quietly. Licensing discussions, mineral access talks, security cooperation frameworks. Greenland isn't about oil first, it's about rare earth elements. Neodymium, dysprosium, critical for missiles, drones, EVs. Companies like Chevron don't announce Arctic interest on Twitter. Neither do defense-linked miners tied to BlackRock-backed funds. They wait until sovereignty becomes shared responsibility. That's stage 4 forming. Don't watch the speeches. Watch the paperwork. 99-year land leases. Exploration permits fast-tracked. Environmental objections suddenly waived for security. When tensions cool later this year, the media will call it compromise. They'll say Europe stood firm. But ask one question: who signs the extraction contracts? Because history is clear. When the pressure stops, it's because the transfer is complete. Stage 4 loading. Now bring it home to you, because you don't pay for this with flags. You pay with receipts. If Venezuelan or Arctic resources suddenly re-enter the market, gas prices at your local station might drop 30 or 40 cents, and you'll think you won. That's the trick, because while fuel gets cheaper, something else quietly collapses. Your energy stocks, your pension exposure, your index funds tied to legacy producers. When new supply floods in, margins shrink, dividends evaporate. The same funds that pressured governments, they reposition first. BlackRock doesn't wait for the news cycle. JP Morgan doesn't hold the bag. They rotate capital into infrastructure plays, shipping corridors, critical mineral ETFs. Meanwhile, you're still celebrating cheaper gas. Now zoom out. If Greenland opens under security cooperation, insurance premiums on Arctic shipping drop, new routes cut weeks off Asia-Europe transit. That doesn't benefit you. It benefits Maersk, ExxonMobil, defense contractors, pricing instability. Your grocery bill won't reflect that efficiency, but your retirement account will feel the volatility, because every time this system runs, wealth doesn't disappear. It migrates upward faster than you can rebalance. And here's the part they never explain. When politicians say peace, markets hear extraction complete. When sanctions ease, it means contracts are signed. When tariffs disappear, it means the corridor is secured. So don't listen to the speeches. Check where capital is moving. Follow the shipping lanes, mineral access points, 99-year lease announcements buried on page 12. Because by the time you feel relief, you've already been priced out. This isn't about ideology, it's about positioning. And if you're not watching the corridors, you're the collateral. This is the final warning, because the pattern doesn't announce itself. It doesn't care about elections. It doesn't pause for public opinion. It already moved. While you were debating motives, contracts were drafted. While leaders spoke about unity, resource corridors were mapped. While you were told this was about security, ownership quietly changed hands. That's how this system survives. No villains in uniform. No declarations of war, just deadlines, tariffs, emergency meetings timed before markets open. And once the extraction phase is complete, the noise stops. Tensions fade, headlines move on. Everyone pretends the crisis is over, but the damage is permanent because the pattern doesn't reverse. It only advances. It doesn't need you to believe in it. It doesn't need your permission. It just unfolds. And every cycle leaves fewer people protected and more people paying the bill. So the next time you hear the word peace, ask yourself one question. Who just signed a 99-year lease? Because if you don't know the answer, you're already inside the system, and it's already pricing you in. Subscribe if you don't want to become collateral damage in the next stage.